Okay, what I want to talk about in this conversation is what do you want to be when you grow up? So there seems to be some confusion, and so I thought I'd enlighten some of you about where the directions that you have the possibility to go. And so let's talk about where you might end up. Okay. One of the first things you need to understand is there's really kind of two worlds of art that you can go into your direction. One of those is called fine arts. Fine arts is where you like to paint paintings and you paint whatever it is that you want to do, or you could do sculptures, and it's all about self-expression. It's about you expressing yourself and doing what you want to do on your own time frame, and you choosing your projects and just doing whatever you want to do. That's the fine arts world, and that's a way that you can go. Then what you do is you take your work into an art gallery and you hang it or stage it in an art gallery, and then you're hoping somebody would buy it. That's fine arts, and that's one way that you can go as an artist. That's not what the direction that we go and the directions we teach. What we're looking at is what's called communication arts. Okay, communication arts is where you are actually not doing self-expression. Your interpretation of things going on is what's not important. Basically, you are a problem solver. You're a creative problem solver. Sometimes you work alone. Sometimes you work together in teams. And what you're doing is you have a client. So you're working for somebody else, okay? And that client has some kind of a problem. It's a creative problem that they need solved, and they're hiring you to do that. Okay. Now, there's some different areas within communication arts. One of those areas is called the advertising arts, and that's like print advertising, or also like a graphic design, package design. That's one branch of communication arts. That's mostly dealing with the printed image, though sometimes we're talking about doing ads for TV. So it's all not printed, but it's all advertising. It's trying to advertise a product and get people to go out and buy the product, whatever it might be, product or a service. Okay. Our branch of communication arts is called the media arts. Media arts, what it really means is that it moves in some way, whether it's an animation or it's interactive. And so communication arts and the media arts, our objects are, they move. Okay, so it's not printed on a piece of paper. They're usually shown on a TV screen or shown on a computer screen. So there are things that move. And with different areas that we work in, one of the areas is film, doing little cute character animations and such for film. Or it could be, we're still working in film, but you're doing digital effects, okay, where you're doing what we might call special effects, where you're using different kinds of processes to create a believable image in some way, and usually that's done for television or for the movie industry, the film industry. Okay. Other areas within the media arts is pre-visualization. That's a huge area within media arts. Pre-visualization is where we are actually creating something that doesn't exist for some reason. It could be for sales. It could be for presentation purposes. And so it could be for any kind of industry that has products that they sell, but they don't have the product yet. So they want us to visualize the product by building it three-dimensionally, texturing it, and lighting it as such. Okay. Another area within the media arts is the game industry, the game art industry. Okay. And that's where we're doing all kinds of interactive games, PlayStation, Xbox, those types of games, some played on computers. That's a big branch of the media arts and animation. So you have a lot of different areas to go when we're talking about communication arts and when we're talking media arts. Okay. Now, the main emphasis for that you need to pay attention to, whether you're in the media arts and animation program or you're in the game art and design, is what the educational focus and what you should be focusing on. There are really three areas that you should be focusing on. The first thing is developing your artistic skills, because nobody really needs somebody that can operate a computer, but they can't produce very nice looking things. So you have to be a very good artist to work in this industry. Also, you need very good computer skills. So you have to be able to take those artistic skills and then create them in some way on a computer. And there's lots of different avenues and different softwares to use. But so it's artistic skills combined with computer skills. And then the last one is you're incorporating business directives. So in other words, it's not self-expression. It's you being able to solve a specific problem that somebody needs for a specific purpose. And so you have a set of guidelines, and it's your ability to work within the guidelines. So you have to show your artistic skills, you have to generate the art on the computer, but you have to be within business directives. And those are the three things that you should focus on. Okay, now as far as job opportunities, places that you could go when you have these kinds of skills, well, gaming companies, you could go work for gaming companies. There's lots of different gaming companies. The number one gaming industry is California. Texas is the number two gaming industry. Where I teach on campus is at the Art Institute of Dallas, so we place a lot of people in the gaming industry. Other industries are the post-production industries. That's where you are doing special effects for television or for films. It's at a post-production studios, like here in Dallas. One of the top ones is Real Effects. Other places, television stations. Television stations hire people that work full-time to doing all kinds of animation and graphics for their in-house productions. So that's a big place you could be able to go. Advertising agencies hire people to work in this field. And then as far as pre-visualization that I talked about earlier, architects hire pre-visualization artists, engineers, medical industry, all need pre-visualization artists to be able to create or sculpt and animate, because it could be a product, but it could be a process that they're needing to have prepared for them to do for sales or presentations in some way. So these are all different avenues that students have, graduates or people that work in the media arts and animation department have places they can go. And there are other places too. You know, the three-dimensional printing is coming in really big right now, so people having the ability to pre-visualize items like for trade show exhibits or point-of purchase displays. That's coming in is really hot right now too. Okay, now modeling. Okay, one of the big places that you can go is become a modeler. Modeler is basically a sculptor. Okay, somebody who is able to sculpt an object in a three-dimensional world, and you sculpt it and texture it and stage it, light it, and be able to shoot it. And so modeling is a part of the industry. And so if you can become a very good modeler, then you can get in the industry. And the modeling is really broken into three areas. You have hard surface modeling. Hard surface is anything that, like it says, it's got a hard surface, things like vehicles, weapons or tools, furniture. The gaming industry refer to those as assets for the games themselves. Another area is organic modeling, and organic modeling has to do with people building characters or creatures. And it's people that are very good in anatomy, so they understand anatomy because they're sculpting muscles and bones and tendons, and so that's a part of the industry that people can specialize in. Another part of the industry, a really big part of the industry, is environments. People being able to create interiors or exteriors, or in a game, we refer to these as levels. In a game, you build these in a modular fashion so that we can build a set of assets that can be put together in many different ways to have different types of looks for our interiors and exteriors. A thing that I like to emphasize here is new versus aged or old. You know, if you're working for an interior designer or an architect, they want their environments to look brand new. You know, Christmas morning, just open up, there it is, oh, it's brand new. Whereas if you're working for a post-production studio or a gaming studio, they want their environments to look aged. They want it to be weathered, to look like it's been there a while and people have lived in it. So these are the three areas that most people kind of focus in. They're going to be modelers: hard surface, organic, or environments. Now, people get confused as to what the importance is and where the jobs are in here. So I like to point it out to people that the reality is this is the hierarchy of job opportunities for people. The environment industry is the largest, so people having the ability to create environments. I mean, just think about it when you're inside of a game. If we're talking levels in a game, you have, maybe 6, 8, 10 different characters, but you've got 20 different environments, and are huge environments, and those environments have a ton of assets and vehicles and weapons. So hard surfaces are need all kinds of assets for these games. So, the widest job opportunities are environments. The second job opportunities would be hard surface. And the last one would be organic, creating characters and creatures. And this kind of throws people for a loop a little bit, because most people coming in, kind of got into art because they could draw well, and they would draw all kinds of characters and creatures and things of that nature. But the reality is that very few people need to hire people to create characters and creatures. And if you're going to be able to get into that industry doing that, you have to be really, really, really good at it. You can't be average at it, or you'll never get a job doing that kind of thing. So for a lot of people, the best bet to try to get into the industry is building a portfolio in which you're showing environments and hard surfaces than it is to build a portfolio of organic. Now, I'm not saying you can do it, go approach it organic. And if you're really, really, really good, I mean, your stuff is just awesome, and you need to look out there and see what some of the competitors, because you're competing with everybody out there. Nobody cares that you're brand new. You're still competing with everybody else that's out there. So you just need to be, understand that a lot of people that buy characters and creatures are buying them from and hiring people that have been in the industry a long time that are very good at that. So that's a hard road to go if you're trying to get into the industry that direction. The easier one is environments and hard surface. And that's not to say that you couldn't get into the industry doing environments and hard surface and then, move towards doing characters and creatures. It's just that that's a really hard direction for people to go, is to go into that one right off the bat. There's some other areas within the industry. Character animation, basically that's actors, people having the ability to take characters and creatures and move them in a believable way. That could be in 2D or 3D. 2D animation, you see that a lot on TV, but, I hate to break it to people, but most of that stuff that you see on TV is not done in the United States. It's done over in Japan or Korea. So there's not a lot of job opportunities for people doing 2D animation. Now, there are some job opportunities because there's software, Toon Boom, that's coming in and making it a little bit easier to do 2D animation. So some of that's coming back to the States. But the bigger market is for people that can do 3D animation. So if you can actually animate a three-dimensional character, that's a little broader of a market. A couple of things you need to know about character animation is if you're going towards to do character animation and want to go in the gaming industry, then you have to be very good at being able to create cycles, because basically you're creating an action that a character would do, and then that action, when it ends, he has to be able to do another action, and those have to chain together, and so you're doing these looping kinds of animation. Another thing that's big and it's nice to be able to know how to do is motion capture. Here at the Art Studio Dallas, we've got a really nice motion capture studio, so students are able to go in there and motion capture. That's where you have the people in the black leotards with the little white balls on them, and then you move around and it records it. And then once you have that data, then you have to massage that data to put it on a character, then manipulate it. It's not an automatic thing. I think a lot of times people think that's all automatic. You just record it and it's done. No, you record it and it's the beginning, and then you have to go in there and do all kinds of hand manipulation of all that to get the data down and get it to do exactly what you want to do. So character animation is all about expression and being able to put emotion into a character by how it moves. There is, if somebody knows programming, you probably could be a rigger, a person who's actually building the bone systems and the setups for animators. Sometimes I've had some graduates that have gone in that direction. That's a possibility too. Another area is motion graphics. Motion graphics, basically a graphic designer that animates. And so there are a lot of people are hired to do motion graphics. It's like if you're watching a football game on Sunday, all those graphics that pop up and tell you the specifics about a player, how many tackles he's made and all that stuff there. That's all motion graphics. So there's a lot of opportunities if you're a good designer. You have to be a very good graphic designer, but you're a graphic designer that animates. Okay, now some of that's for television, some of it's for the web or corporate presentations, but there's a big market for that. And another area that kind of tags on that's what I call a design generalist. There's a lot of companies that specialize in that need somebody who can do graphic design, so can do print design and do branding like logos and brochures, but they also need somebody that can do 3D, because they're a package design company and need somebody to be able to sculpt the packages for sales purposes. or they could be a company that specializes in trade show exhibits. So they need somebody who can actually design and render to do presentations of three-dimensional exhibits, as well as have good graphic design skills. So a design generalist is a 3D design generalist is a possibility also. Visual effects is another. Visual effects is where you're doing, they're kind of like photographers. It's where you're going in and you're using a variety of skills. And a lot of this are systems like particle systems where you can simulate natural phenomena. You're using a hard body and soft body dynamics. Hard body dynamics is where you're using the computer to calculate how something will bounce around and move. Soft body dynamics is things like hair and cloth when they move. A lot of people don't understand that a character animator doesn't really animate the cloth that's on the character, that you have a special person that comes in that's an effects artist that handles all that. Green screen, shooting things on green screen so we can composite things together. That's the kind of things, compositing. So visual effects is part of the industry as well. So these are all options, places that you can go. Visual effects, motion graphics, character animation, modeling is a big one, and then modeling kind of usually breaks down into categories. People are specialized in environments or hard surface or organic. It's not to say that somebody couldn't do all of those, but at a certain point, everything has to be at a high level. What I try to tell people is, A people get the A jobs, B people gets the B jobs. Everybody else, wears hairnets and works in fast food. Okay, there's no room for C-level artists in this industry. Now a C-level artist could do work in the graphic design industry. I'm not trying to say anything bad about the graphic design industry. Graphic design industry is a great industry. The difference is, if you've ever been to a GameStop, going to GameStop, that's media arts and animation, all the things that are like in a GameStop. Now walk out of that and go next door to a grocery store and see all the products and package designs in a grocery store. That's the graphic design department. So there's just a lot more job opportunities in the graphic design industry and the advertising industry than there is in the media arts industry. So you have to be very good at what you do. Okay, so. Okay, so let's look at some things. Okay, I'm going to start off here with the process from beginning to end, pretty much. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is pre-visualization. Now, the funny thing about pre-visualization, here at the Art Institute of Dallas, we polled students coming in for about 3 years and gave them, what jobs they thought that they wanted to do when they were able to get out, once they graduated and got their bachelor's degree, what kind of job they would like. And about 90% of those people said they wanted to be pre-visualization artists, which is kind of stunning considering that probably 0.5% of those people actually have the ability to be a pre-visualization artist. And so, the thing about a pre-visualization artist is you have to be really, really good if you don't have any other skills, because one of the things that happens is like, let's say you're going to work at a gaming company. You'll come into the gaming company and they'll need a pre-visualization. Games take anywhere from 2 to 3 years to make, and they need pre-visualization for maybe the first 2 or 3 months. After that, they don't need you anymore. So you would just get let go, and then you would run from job to job. But if you had other skills, so if you were a good modeler and texture artist and did pre-visualization, then once the pre-visualization part of the process stopped, then you could roll over being a texture artist or a modeler. So I recommend people have more skills than just pre-visualization. One of the first processes that you do in pre-visualization is doing storyboards, and that's where you're doing sequential drawings, trying to show the flow of the action, what's going on. These are traditional. Do them in pencil is fine. Normally you're doing storyboards to show the other artists within the company you're working at, so they don't need to be in color. And you can do your traditional kinds of panels, or it could actually be laid out in game style. That's okay. Now, all the artwork I'm going to show you in here is all done by students that I've had at the Art Institute of Dallas. So all this is artwork that students have done. So storyboards, and then you can do them in color. Sometimes we're going to do presentations to clients, and so we might want those in color. So, we would take them in and color those, usually like in Photoshop or Painter, something like that. Now, another area that you work into as a conceptual artist is you're going to go into the thumbnail stage. Now, what a problem I have with a lot of students when they think they want to be a conceptual artist, they just want to come up with the solution. And the thing is that I don't need somebody that can come up with the solution. I need somebody that can come up with lots of solutions, and then we narrow it down from there. So characters, coming up with different drawings of a lot of different characters, because this would be presented, and then I would come in as the creative director and I'd say, okay, I like the hat off this guy, but I want the pants off this guy, but I like this guy's sword, but I like this guy's shoulder pads, and then you would put that all together. So the thumbnail stage is one of the first ones you go through. Okay. And here's another good example, just where you do just tons and tons of different things to come out to choose and pick from. They can be characters. You do thumbnails for vehicles. You do thumbnails for environments. One of the most important things is to realize your silhouette value of whatever it is that you're sketching out is very important, so that the silhouette of it reads pretty rapidly. Okay, so I show students a variety of different ways that they can approach drawing. I don't really care as long as it's quality. And then once you have that all narrowed down, then you'll do actual finished drawings. And those could be any kind of style that you want to a certain degree, any kind of media. Like it could be pencil that you're working with. It could be pen and ink. This is nice, kind of a cross-hatching kind of style. Or it could be more of a pen and ink, kind of an outline style. Doesn't matter as long as you're, capturing the essence of the characters that you're needing to do. And then, of course, then you could take those drawings and you could take them into Photoshop or Painter and colorize those. Okay. Now, I have a lot of students that come into this school they're very good at drawing like an anime manga kind of style, okay, which is kind of fine. But the thing about it is then I have to tell them we need to move beyond that, because for the most part in the United States, at least, nobody buys that. Now, if you speak Korean or Japanese and you want to go overseas, then you might be able to get a job over there doing, anime kind of stuff, but you're not going to get a job probably in the States doing that. But it's okay, because that, you developed your style that way, and then I show people how to kind of modify their style, to work within what's happening in the industry. So, in variety of different kinds of styles people work with, and it doesn't really matter as long as you're able to do it at a high quality level and people can understand what you're trying to show them. They could be characters or any kind of creatures. These are all done by students here at the Art Institute. We maybe need some cutesy, got to have some cutesy stuff too. Everything can't be demons, but just according to the direction you're trying to go. But then again, for every cutesy, I need a hell dog. Got to have a hell dog in there. So a variety of things that the students have produced. But it's just not about characters also. You have to be able to do vehicles. Okay, this is a nice vehicle from one of the students. And matter of fact, remember this vehicle because we'll come back to it in a little bit. Different varieties of styles, the way to do it. Here's a clean kind of look. This is where I, telling students and making them understand how, a lot of vehicles are actually based off of animals, fish and birds and insects and such. And then a lot of times you want to stage the vehicles in some kind of little diorama so that, you're showing action and things that have been done, So I try to get students to do that as well. And then, you need to do, environments. Here's a nice exterior, doing exteriors as well as interiors. And so as a pre-visualization artist, you have to work in all those areas. A lot of students come to school want to be pre-visualization artists and that have the skill, but all they want to do is draw characters. Well, we need a lot of environments. We need a lot of hard surface objects. So you have to be able to do all of that. But like I said, most people will not be a pre-visualization artist. So just because you want to be a pre-visualization artist doesn't mean that you have the skills to be a pre-visualization artist. And, my particular view on it is that you can't really teach people to be good at drawing. They either are good at drawing or they're not. I can take somebody and make them better at drawing, but I can't take somebody that's just, coming out of high school and is just average at drawing and then turn them into a dynamic, pre-visualization artist. That just doesn't really happen. You have to come in and you've got chops. If you've got chops and you draw really well, and that's another thing people get confused about because students think that if they draw really well, they can be a pre-visualization artist. Well, being able to draw well is just a given as a pre-visualization artist, because a pre-visualization artist is not about drawing, it's about concept. It's about being able to come up with unique concepts, or concepts in which that you are grounded in some type of a period, Roman architecture or something, but you're able to come up with things that look unique within that time period or whatever. So it's a lot about, your ideas and not just the drawing. The drawing's given that you could draw really well. But more job opportunities would be in the actual going into the modeling industry. Okay, so when we're talking about modeling, talking about environments. Okay, so here's a nice exterior. Okay, another nice exterior. So understanding not just the modeling, but the texturing and interiors and exteriors. Lighting is a huge thing. This is a daylight system done in 3D Max. Here's an interior. This was a really nice one that the student did. Wanted to capture an old 50s kind of a look, and so just had to make sure the student stayed true to the era when he was creating all this, but it had a really nice kind of I Love Lucy flavor to it. So it's really nice environment piece. And I swear I'm old enough. I think I actually sat at that table and ate when I was younger. Okay, here's a more kind of a traditional one that you would see nowadays, more of a modern interior. Okay, so it's not so much how hard the modeling is. You have to be able to model custom assets, but the modeling's not that hard. It's the texturing and lighting, that goes into this. Now, here is a gray shader, so you can just see the base gray shader of this particular model. And then with the textures on and the lighting, kind of pops it off of there. Here's another angle of it, gray shader, lights and textures. Here's another piece from one of our graduates. You can see it's, a lot about getting the lighting just right. Here's another piece. This was kind of an old hospital. For whatever reason, students like to do hospitals for some reason. This one had a nice flavor to it. Has a nice kind of lived-in look to it too, like it's been used. Here's another one of a morgue. I'm not sure what students' fascination is with medical facilities, but they seem to do those quite a bit. So this was a nice piece, this morgue. This was an old, dilapidated. I think this was a Russian facility for people who were having mental issues. But this was a really incredible piece for the students to do, because there was so much debris scattered around, and being able to pull all that off took quite a long time. But they did a very nice job on this, capturing the mood and the dilapidation of this. Is really kind of nice. A newer facility, and this is a nice, clean look, more of an architectural kind of look. A little bit of post-processing with some lens flares in there off those intense lights. It's a very nice piece. Macro environments. I have a class where I make people do little bitty environments where it can't be more than about 4 or 5 feet. And so this was one that one of my students did. That was a torpedo tube. And then one of the things I make them do in these is to incorporate some kind of a human element into it. And, but I don't want the human element to be, in your face. I want it to be very subtle. And so in this particular case, if you really look at this, you'll see a rosary bead right up here. And I don't know if you have to be a Catholic to get that, but this person that's running these torpedo tubes knows at any moment they might die. And so that's a nice little subtle piece that they put in there. Gaming environments. Okay, so this was a gaming environment that one of the students did. In the gaming industry, you want things to look, old and weathered, and so a lot of texturing possibilities. So this was a nice environment that the student built. Another gaming environment here. This is a modular system. So the student built a bunch of modular pieces, and then it's how you put them together to make the different types of areas for the people to be able to run around into. So you're building all these kind of assets. And a lot of times, and I'll go through this, you're building a high poly version, low poly version, you're unwrapping on texture, and there's a whole process that you go through. but these are all modular, so they could easily be put together in a variety of different ways. Here's another one from a different student. This is actually in the Unreal, let's see, this was the Unreal 3 engine. And so these were actually screen grabs from the playing the game. So the student did a pretty nice job. Okay, hard surface modeling. Okay, so we move from environments to hard surface modeling. This is where we're building anything that's not a character or a creature. It's something that's hard, like this coffee maker here. And of course, there's a lot goes into this because initially you sculpt this as a gray shader, then you have to come back at another time and you're doing your surfacing to get your textures the way you want it. So glass looks like glass and plastic looks like plastic. You're doing some custom bitmaps for all these tops on here. And then you got to come in and you got to understand lighting, doing realistic lighting and staging and where to place your camera. So there's a lot that goes into these to get these to look this way. Here's another nice piece. Now, I try to tell students they need to do something that has a wow factor. In this particular case, the wow factor is doing something that's antique. These old cameras are pretty cool, but then, you've really got to do a really good job modeling and really good job of surfacing them, but then they come out pretty nice. Here's another one. Now, this is a gaming asset, so this is actually a low poly version. So the student built a high poly version and then a low poly and cast the low poly onto the high poly onto the low poly to get his normal maps and then did the textures and everything. So sometimes you're building high poly, sometimes you're building low poly in the gaming. But a lot of the stuff I do, I work in the pre-visualization. I don't have to build low poly because I just do the high poly. Okay, so when you're doing your modeling, the more that you can kind of, I try to get my students to have one or two pieces in the reel. That's a very complicated piece that took a lot of different pieces to put it together. Students, when they first get in my class, they kind of flip out trying to do something like this, but I make them realize it's just a collection of small things. So you're just making a collection of small things, build little things, break it all down a little bit at a time, and then it's okay. It's not that hard to build something like this. Time consuming, but not that hard, just time consuming. And you'll start off with everything with gray shaders, and then you come back in here and start putting other kinds of shaders in here. I get a lot of motorcycles. Here's a steampunk motorcycle, which is pretty nice. Front side, back side. You can see here, down here are the initial gray shaders once he was sculpting it, and then getting his materials on there. Another motorcycle. This was a pretty interesting one. This was a motorcycle I really wanted to buy. It's a $100,000 motorcycle, so I'm pretty sure I didn't have the money to do it. So I got one of my students to actually build it, and he did a very dynamic job in doing this. Very unique design. So it's got that wow factor just because it's really cool. And did a very good job on the materials, using HDRI lighting and staging it, and everything was really nice. Really nice piece. Vehicles. These kind of sloping kinds of vehicles are really hard to do. For people to get these organic flowing shapes is pretty hard. And the student did it, pretty good job. But then I told them I want to take it a step further. I wanted them composite into a photograph. So they went out in Dallas and shot some photographs of some local places, and then came in and composited it actually into the photograph, which turned out quite nice. Okay, here's some other vehicles. This is an actual gaming vehicle. So this is the high poly sculpt, okay, Warhammer. And so it's just showing you the actual high poly sculpt that he did. And then he had to come back and rebuild it with a low poly count. And then you're casting the high poly onto the low poly. The low poly is what we put in the actual game. Here it is with textures on it. So you can go in through the textures, specular highlights and normal maps. And of course, you'll learn all this when you go through those classes. Here's another gaming vehicle. I try to also tell the people not to, it's nice if they can stage it. So built this little diorama, little scene to put this piece in. But, this turned out pretty good. It's all low poly, been unwrapped and painted. So it's a pretty cool little vehicle. Okay, we're back to this piece again, and I wanted to show you this piece again because this was a piece of concept art that one of my students created and then came back and a different student modeled it. And so here is the model once he got finished with it, and this student was just real proud of themselves that they had really totally captured the concept. And so if we go back to the concept, you'll see, well, they did a really nice job capturing the concept. But I told them it was not done. And they go, what do you mean it's not done? It's exactly like the concept. I said, I don't care. The concept artist is all about giving you the flavor, the aroma of what it is, but they don't put all the detail in that you need. You have to go back and put the detail yourself. This is what I call a level 2 detailing of a model. And, I wanted to take them to level 4, and they didn't quite understand it. And so I took them over to a website now, Neil Blevins, www.neilblevins.com. He's got a lot of really nice educational aspects on his website, so I bet everybody go over there. But this is a nice piece that he put up, and I think it illustrates this. So I show the students all the time what I'm talking about. This is the first read, a second read, a third read, and a fourth read. Most people stop at the second read, and that's what that student had done. He was at the second read and thought he was done. And I'm like, no, I want you to get to a third read. So you're putting detail on your detail on your detail. And so here's what he had again, and then this is what it looked like once he reworked it. So you can see major difference in what this looks like and what this looks like because I pushed them to go in and add all that extra detail to take it into the next realm, and they did a very nice job getting a level 4 of detailing on this. Here it is with the surfacing on it. Okay, this is primarily done with bitmaps, and that's one way to go. There's the front of it, and here's the back with the shaders on it. And then here's where it was finally staged for his portfolio. So, I surfaced it and staged it, but then I had him composite into a photograph, something, not exactly, something similar to the original concept art, and made for a really nice portfolio piece. Here's another piece of concept art. So it's going from this. I have students actually go out and search concept artists and ask for their permission to build their stuff. And so my students, I actually track all this where they have to show me the emails where they've gone out and collaborated with a concept artist to build a model, because most people are not concept artists, and your modeling is only as good as the concept. Have a lot of students that want to build the models that they design. That's all self-absorption. You're never going to do that in industry. You're not going to be the person that's designing it and the person that's modeling it. You're not going to be a little mini Pixar in yourself. You're going to be a modeler. You model what somebody else designed. Okay, and what you have to do is be able to interpret that. So very few people have the ability to be a great concept artist and a great modeler. There are some, but not very many. So here he is where he's sculpted it out. This is the high poly version of it. Okay, before he gets into the low poly, creating the high poly version. Then here's the low poly version showing the wireframe and the poly count. And then going through the texturing process and unwrapped it and textured it. Here's the front of it, and then here's the back of it. And it turned out to be a pretty nice piece. Okay, now I want to talk about surfacing because there's a lot of confusion on that. So here's a nice piece. This is a low poly game asset. Okay, it was sculpted in Max. A lot of people think things like this have to all be sculpted in ZBrush. You can do it in ZBrush, but you can do it in Max too. Here's the actual high poly model that the person sculpted in Max right here. And then here's the low poly version of it. So you can start seeing some of the faceting and stuff that comes in. You try to eliminate that as much as possible. But the high poly, low poly, here it is with the actual polygon cage where you can see it. And it's a pretty nice piece. And then you get into your texturing. So what you're doing is unwrapping it. Now, not all texturing has to be unwrapping, but if you're going to do the gaming industry, it pretty much has to be unwrapping. And so this is where they unwrapped and then packed and created the diffuse map for this, which is basically your color. And then here's the normal map. The normal map is what you cast off of the high poly onto the low poly to give it the high poly look, even though it's low poly. And then a specular map. A specular map is how glossy is the surface. So the darker it is, the more matte the surface, and the more it's white, the more reflective the surface. Here's another example. Here's the high poly model, the low poly model. There's the actual texture on the left, and then the specular map on the right. You know, the brighter or the more white it is, the more reflective the surface will be, and the darker it is, the more it will be matte. And then here's the final look of the game asset. Pretty nice piece. Okay, but the other thing I want to talk about is procedural textures. I see a lot of people out there saying, oh, you don't ever want to use procedural textures. You know, they're not good. You want to always unwrap things and paint them. Well, basically, my view on that is the reason those people say is because they don't know how to use procedural textures. And since they don't know how to use procedural textures, they're pretty sure nobody else could know how to use them. Therefore, everybody should stay away from them. And it's really all kind of crap. Procedural textures are very powerful and can be used in a lot of ways. So here's an industrial vehicle that one of my students built. So here's the the high poly of it, and then here's what it looks like once you went in and surfaced it. Okay, so all of this surfacing in here is all done with shaders and procedural patterns on it. So there's no bitmaps on this, and it's done really nice. It's a really nice piece. Okay, now I say there's no bitmap. I take it back. Right up here where this says the name up here, the Austin Western, that's a bitmap. But all the rest of this is all surfaced through shaders and procedural textures. Okay, procedural patterns on there. Here's another example. Okay, so another really nice hard surface model that one of the students built, and this is all done with procedural textures. Now, I say all done, I mean 98%. Yes, this smiley face right here, that's a bitmap, and the American flag right here is a bitmap, but all the rest of this is all procedural textures. So all this surfacing and the metals and the patterning is all done in a procedural way. A procedural way has a lot of value. They're resolution independent, which means you can really zoom in on them and the quality holds, and you can use them over and over again. So once you have a good shader built, you can build a library and you can use it over and over again. Whereas when you're unwrapping something, that can only be used once for the object you're unwrapping it on. So a good artist use a bunch of different tools. They would use unwrapping and doing bitmaps, as well as procedural textures, as well as titleable bitmaps, which is a whole other area also. So there's lots of ways to get things surfaced. Now, we talked about organic modeling earlier. Here's some organic models. Okay, now initially when you're first sculpting, it's all gray shaders. Okay, we're just trying to get the flow of the geometry right and get the nature of the character right. You see the character concept art up here, and then the final is kind of a little, kind of a held dog kind of thing. Now, another thing that's very important is to stage impose your character. So if you build a character, you don't want it in a relaxed T pose, which is what you normally build it with. You want to actually stage the character as well. Famous people are pretty hard to do, but if you can do one, they're pretty impressive. Michelle Pfeiffer here from Catwoman, sculpting the body. This was all done in ZBrush. Very nice piece. Here's a low poly character. So this is an actually low poly character created in 3D Max, ready to go into the game. Here's another character. Now, he initially sculpted this as high poly, then into a low poly, and then unwrapped it and textured it. Okay, this has got 16,000 triangles in this, so it's kind of a mid poly. It's a beauty piece, a hero piece, and then of course he unwrapped it and painted his textures for it. This is one, it was kind of interesting because we went into mental ray and he was playing with subsurface scattering to get this kind of luminosity where you see through the skin. Of course, it would be difficult to put that in a game, but it is possible. Okay, and that's it. So there's lots of different avenues to go. Whether you want to be in modeling. If you do modeling, the widest job openings is in doing environments or doing hard surfaces. Doing characters and creatures is a little bit hard. Okay, hope that enlightens some of you. Thank you very much.